Hey, what's up, you guys? So, today I was thinking about how there are times when I'm either out and about, and when I am out and about, I may be exposing myself to somebody else's workplace, and that has to do with anywhere I go shopping. Sometimes I notice that there may be someone who is disabled who is taking care of me, like it may be my cashier or something like that. And then I also thought about some folks who I know at my job who are disabled, and I'm not entirely sure of what their conditions are. It's not really a physical limitation, so I am left to assume that because they have a carer with them or a helper with them, it might be more of a mental disability of some sort. But when it comes to me dealing with them at my job, and I don't want to say dealing as in they are challenging or anything, it's more of a when we collaborate, there are some things that I would like to ask, particularly leadership, but I am afraid to take that step because I am afraid that I may be misunderstood, which I doubt it because I feel like I can communicate this stuff well, but I feel like there is kind of a stigma associated with bringing up the matter. So I'm just going to throw this stream out here and I am going to bring this up, and hopefully you guys who work and have had experiences, maybe you yourself are a manager or have been a manager and you have had someone who is challenged in your team or like disabled in your team, you can maybe give me some insights on how to approach this. But one of the questions that I have is, how is their performance measured? And the reason I bring this up is because one of the folks who helps me is independent, as in he works, but he doesn't have a carer. And I have not been there for this, but I have heard the stories. He has actually made some comments that leadership had to approach him and be like, honey, you can't be saying that to customers. And I get it. But at the same time, when it comes time to do your screening of how you are doing as a worker, and that determines how much of a pay raise you may get, I want to know how they get measured when it comes to that. Because at least the disabled folks who I work with, they do very basic things. They do let's call it the minimum that you have to do at the job to be considered productive. But at the same time, I don't want to say that it's not fair for the rest of us, but I wonder how that's dealt with because for me personally, I am great at working independently. But there is one person who I work with who actually needs help because, say, as I am doing my thing, scanning, handing him stuff, he gets confused. Like, if he sees everything mixed together, if I don't sort it out for him, he will get confused. And honestly, that can slow me down sometimes because I am used to just passing my stuff and I don't have to be coaching someone every single day that I work with them on how to get the job done. But at the same time, I am aware that he has his limitations. But I have not been trained on how to approach an individual who is challenged in that aspect. And I would be afraid that if I try to help him, he may react a certain way. He's never done it, but sometimes he has better days than others. And then I feel like I am constantly dodging a bullet because I guess it's something that should be common sense. You should know to just speak to this person normally. But at the same time, when I have someone collaborating with me, I expect that they are there to assist me because we have the same skill level. But to me, I'm not used to have to pretty much to put it in understandable terms, to be holding their hand through the whole process, you know. Um, so I would love to just have a conversation with someone who I work with about this, but at the same time, I wouldn't like to be misinterpreted as me being too full of myself, like, you're a high performing team member and you are not being kind to someone who is trying to help you. They like to show up to their shift, they like to work, but at the same time, you're not being patient with them. And I'm like, I'm sorry. It's not that I don't want to be patient with this person, it's just that I don't know how to go about it. We have one of them who has a helper, and then we have the other person who doesn't have a helper. Why does that person not have a helper? The person who has the helper is more useful to me because that frees me up from the responsibility of having to guide my colleague whom I'm expecting is there to assist me. But then I have to take care of the customer, I have to focus on my task, and then I also have to make sure that my colleague is doing things right. And that's the part where I feel like I'm being slowed down and that I would like to bring it up to leadership. Like, look, I'm not trying to be unappreciative, but at the same time, I'm not sure how to communicate to my colleague in an effective way to where I'm not being offensive, but also they can perform their job. Because in the past, it has happened where you try to say something and they may react a certain way. It doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, it can get out of control, and I would not like for that to happen. Um, but but those are just some curiosities that I have, honestly. I know that when I show up to my shift, I am expected to do an outstanding job. And then this person would get a lot of passes because they have their limitations. So therefore, they're not going to be looked at with as much scrutiny as the rest of us. But in addition, I would like to know how that is seen when it comes to management, when it comes to hiring these people. Do you like to give them a pass and introduce them into the organization because you're afraid that if you turn them down, you may have repercussions for that? You may get a bad reputation or something like, look at that place. That place is, it has something against disabled people. But at the same time, my biggest concern is also the safety aspect of it because at some point those limitations may interfere. Even though you limit them to one department and to very specific tasks, like I said, we all get measured. Our performance gets measured one way or the other. And I'm sure that they still get a pay raise of some sort. I'm not saying that they're not entitled to it. I'm not saying that they don't deserve it. But what is their rate of progress compared to the rest of us? And that's why I just would love to have a conversation with leadership about this because I feel like it's not like these people would be necessarily favored, but it's strange to me that you would hire someone who may not be as capable as another potential candidate. How does that work? What are you doing? Are you trying to just give an opportunity to this person to improve their life quality by having a job and therefore income? Money is important. Or are you willing to sacrifice a little bit the quality of a team just for a couple of hours while this person is there? Or does that really not affect anything? Um, but sometimes for me personally, and there are some people who have come to me to express their feelings as well, some of us feel like because we are not trained on how to address some individuals, then that may be generating some tension within the environment. But anyways, I think I put my main point out there. So I'm gonna see what you guys are saying. But yeah, I'm just confused. I wish I could have some guidance about it. It's kind of asking for trouble having a mentally retarded person in the service sector. The whole point of service is to understand the needs of the customer and meet those needs. You know what? When you put it like that, you are right. Because while I was venting about when you tell him things, he doesn't necessarily always overreact, but sometimes there are those instances. I think about that as well. The customer service of this individual is pretty limited. It's not like he is there enough to know the department, to know the store, to know what happens. So I cannot be like, hey, buddy, do you happen to know if we have this and that? He won't know. Whereas if I have another colleague who is, let's say, properly trained and also capable of retaining the training, I know that I can count on that colleague to assist me and grant me support whenever I lack something. But when I have him, sometimes I'm like, I would like to consult this with someone, but I can assume safely that he will not know. But at the same time, I don't want to make it obvious that I'm picking on him or that I'm rejecting him and not giving him a chance at being helpful. Um, and then there have also been instances in which sometimes for this particular person, noises tend to, I guess, scare him. Because sometimes when the customer leaves the card inserted in the terminal and it keeps going, like making that noise, beeping sound, he has actually kind of shouted at the customer and been like, your card is done, or remove your card. And to crying babies, he has turned to them and told them to shut up. So, yeah, 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 yeah. I'm all for challenge person working, however, there are better suited roles based on their skill set. Exactly. I'm glad that you say that. I know that there are places that these folks can excel at, but when it comes to, say, retail, it is a very fast paced environment. And because it is a fast paced environment, it's optimal and preferable that everyone is in good shape to deal with high traffic, the demands of customers. Like certain customers are pretty picky about how their stuff is bagged. Some customers themselves are actually special needs themselves. Like you have the older lady who needs help, or they cannot have things too heavy, or they would like their fragile things on one bag, etc., etc. It's kind of draining that I would have to be coaching my colleague on all that stuff. Like, hey, buddy, don't forget that you cannot make the bags too light, or remember that the veggies go with the veggies and, like distributing things. I should be able to just push stuff along and whoever's helping me and working with me can sort it. But it's no problem for me to accommodate him and sorting things for him as I pass it along. But sometimes, even though I do that, because I go at a consistent pace, he gets confused, and then I have to catch him getting confused and then help him snap out of it and be like, I got the veggies. You get the cold stuff. And then he's like, okay. And then sometimes he gets confused again. And he's like, I'm not sure that I can fit this in the bag. Or I'm not sure if this needs to go on top or the bottom. And then, when it's rush hour, that's when it gets tricky. Because during rush hour, I am focused and I am feeling that subtle stress of the demands are increasing. Like the lines are getting long, you can feel their frustration and whatnot. And then I'm here with a colleague who is not keeping up. But it's not that he is a bad worker or a bad person. It's just that he has his limitations. So I wish that we had some kind of course, some type of, I am shy. And because I cannot really connect with this person in the manner that I connect with everyone else, which is I am a very sarcastic creature and I just vent and everything. I want to integrate him into my life, I guess, but at the same time, we are not compatible because of our personalities. There's a lot of people who I work with who I just say, hello, how are you? Thank you so much. See you tomorrow. So I don't expect to create a tight connection, but at the same time, because I am, let's say, challenged when it comes to social skills, for people like me who are shy, and there's a lot of people in my department feeling just like me, we need to get together and come up with like some kind of training or something, official training. Let's see. Not all mentally retarded people are unable to cope with social skills, but it's one of the main side effects. If I'm a business, I would hire a few disabled people. I can always find something for them to do. I just can't hire them all. Exactly. Like, we don't have that many. We only have two that I can think of. And then our receiving person also was a disabled person. Part of it was physical. And then I'm not sure how he was in the mental sector. He seemed fine, but his speech was a little on the slower end. So maybe he had something that was giving him a speech impediment or something. But but yeah, he was the receiver. That's a physically demanding job, and somehow he was really good about handling that freaking pallet jack and everything else. So, I would pretty much bow to him. But yeah, I would definitely give opportunities to disabled people if I know that I can accommodate them into my organization without having a negative impact on any of my teams. So I'm not saying that they cause for our business to suffer, but that team may suffer from time to time when they have their, let's say, mental blocks. Let's see, what are you guys saying? Actual cripple here, ideally a person should never be given a job they can't do, disabled or otherwise. I think it would make sense to measure performance the same as ever, just keep tasks reasonable. That's a very good point. When it comes to what we do, again, they're not physically disabled. They can stand, they can reach, they can bend, they can walk, they can do all that stuff that's absolutely indispensable in our position. But that customer service aspect, because customer service is not really tangible, like it's something that you see someone performing, but it's more on a social interacting aspect and how to resolve problems. That's a little trickier to determine about a person. But I guess that when we do hire them, we understand that if they are mentally um, challenged, then we cannot expect for them to be a stellar customer service person. But at the same time, because they are given the physical tasks, if their mental challenges tend to block them, as it happens with this individual who I'm thinking and talking about, then. But I guess he does help the team more than not. But like I said, when he works with me, because I personally don't have the skills of how to address a person like that and best help them, and I'm shy and I'm not used to telling people how to do something, like everyone has their style, I don't like to interfere, then yeah, he can be nice and pretty sweet most of the time, but that's what I'm afraid of. What if I may tell him something in the way that I am used to coaching other people, and other people get it, but he may not get it. And then I may land myself in hot water. And I don't think that's fair. It has never happened, but Yeah, I just don't know. That's why I needed to just vent about this because I don't know. I just don't know. Yeah, this guy doesn't sound like he should be working with people. It's tragic, but for the brief stint I worked at a hardware store at 16, there was a mentally not all three guy that they had on experience just taking inventory with someone helping him. Even then, I couldn't help but think they shoved him into the warehouse because they didn't trust him around people. Most people with mental retardation will excel in certain roles, even beyond a normally functioning worker. It's all about finding their niche and playing to that advantage. True. I feel like a horrible person saying this, but since I went to a school for disabled people, I've seen a lot of disabled people in working roles in some way or another, and honestly, I have had the thought that people with mental difficulties might be better to hire because they are generally more enthusiastic and more likely to give all their effort. You know what, Ollie? The guy who I'm talking about, he is that kind of guy. Like my former manager used to say, so we have the guy coming, and he is very excited to work. He is very enthusiastic about what he does. It's going to be his first day tomorrow after a long time or something. Like, say he left for school or something and he's back. Like, he's here and he's all excited about the job. This is his first job, so let's give him, a warm, kind welcome and show him what our department is like, etc., etc. And then I'm like, yeah. And then when we start working together, it's like, oh, okay. But I guess that's why we. I don't want to say tolerate, but I guess that is the right word. We tolerate them and keep them around because they show that enthusiasm. They will give their best, which by company standards is not optimal best, but we keep them around because they apparently are more useful than not. And honestly, they can be a joy to be around. They can be different. Like the other person who has her challenges. My other coworkers can have a conversation with her, and she's always talking about her going to school and her going on camps and whatever, going to the beach or something. And she's also diabetic. So sometimes she gets sick, not very often. That's why she has a helper too, but we have to track that as well because sometimes we have food lying around that we're being offered or we have events that you can participate in and sometimes she may want to try something and now she says that before anyone else she goes, oh, I'm diabetic, and then she stops. But sometimes she may maybe have like a moment of having a lagoon in the mind and then she may go for something and we have to sort of like stop her. but but yeah, honestly, in my overall opinion, they don't bother me. I don't have anything against them. But sometimes I do get worried that my performance may be affected because it's not that they make my day difficult. It's just that, again, if I had coaching on how to properly address them, um, I could be doing a whole lot better. And then again, I'm not asking, not because leadership would sanction me or something. It's just that I don't feel comfortable bringing it up because I don't want to seem like I'm insensitive. Um, I believe that I am good with people. Making that first step to socialize with someone is pretty challenging to me. Like I said, I am shy, but I do feel like I can be kind and courteous and I know how to treat people. It's just that in a work setting, the way you interact and conduct yourself is significantly different. Like the person who you guys see here, I am maybe 50% of who I am when I stream at work. And that 50% happens during downtimes. But when I have to put my professional face on, my professional accent on, I'm a completely different person. So, yeah, I need to know how to be, how can I say, a good coach while also working, while also be being kind to someone who needs me. But it sounds simple in my mind. Like as I tell you the story, I'm telling myself, what is the problem? Why am I having issues? Why am I being challenged? But it's when I'm there that I see how every day is not the same. Some days are more demanding than others. Some days are just dead, so there's nothing to do, and it doesn't bother me at all that I have to spend what an order that takes me 5 minutes, I have to spend 15 trying to tell my buddy how to get things done, you know? But anyways, I mean, I'll keep trying, and since you guys gave your inputs, then I feel a whole lot better. But yeah, I don't want to. Because, see, I'm thinking in a business manner, profits, productivity. Of course, this person is not optimal when it comes to productivity, but whatever little bit they do, they don't do a bad job when you help them, when you help them help you, when you coach them. So that's why I'm like, if someone performs well when they are being coached, does that make them a good worker, or is a good worker exclusively someone who can work independently? Because I know that when we hire people, part of our job description is works well independently, but also works well as a member of a team. Do we have more preference for one? Does one have more impact than the other? Or is this something that has a big asterisk by it and it's depending on the circumstance? I think I like to personally value people who work well independently. Like, if you have to constantly tell someone how to do their job, when to do their job, answer basic questions that you should know just from experience at being in that building for so long. Like, take your worker education into your own hands. If you're asking me the same basic question on something, you're not being very efficient. I'm just saying. Because then, because I take all of that seriously and I take the time to learn, now everybody comes to me to get support. Because if you go to the manager is going to be like, well, why don't you know? You've been here all this time. Why are you asking the same questions? See what I mean? So, but anyways, anyways, it's just, yeah, yeah, it goes many directions. I think the proper role of management should be to constantly test and probe their workers and assign them tasks suited to their skills. If a person is not performing properly, challenge or not, they should be reassigned to a proper role. Or, or, but not limited to, separation? Question mark? Like, I'm not saying that any of the folks I know should be fired, but what if it gets to that? And then again, I guess we also have those laws that protect disabled people. Like, if you suspect that you're discriminating against them and whatever, then I guess people are just scared of being sued. Let's face it. On the note of talking to management, just be sure to know that you're talking in the interest of the challenged person, not that you're annoyed with their work. Exactly. Yeah, no, I would never bring it up like that. I would be like, I have a concern, and it's, I work with this person, and I would like to see them excel at their role a little better, but I don't know how to go about it. Or I see areas where they can improve, but I'm not sure how to help them. Can you help me help them? Or can you help them to help me? I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, that comment looks limited, so let me open it up. Okay. Productivity also depends on the disability. I had a support admin who had spina bifida, spina bifida. I've never heard that being said. And she did great. Just had to listen carefully to her in phone calls. But yeah, you guys, that pretty much sums it up for me. yeah, I think that they all deserve a chance. I definitely believe in giving opportunities, but I think that it is the responsibility of management to give us a heads up and also arm us with the tools on how to cope with situations like this, just in case you get many ZAMs who want to help and want to do better and in the interest of this person, like Knight said, but we just don't know how to do it. um, I think it's that fear of the unknown. We've never done that. We're not trained to do that. How do we cope with that? Everyone has a range of skills, no matter if they're considered disabled or not. Exactly. Yeah, some folks who are disabled may be the greatest minds ever. I mean, I'm pretty sure that we have a lot of examples of that already. Like, they may not be physically capable, but their contributions have been priceless to society. So I'm not saying that they cannot do anything, but yeah, when it comes to certain settings, there's definitely impact. So I think we all need to just sit down and consider that. I guess we could include Stephen Hawking in there, even though his stuff was pretty much not something that we could test out, but I think he contributed to science. So, and he was like super sick. So, anyways, you guys, that concludes my rambling. He was just paralyzed. Yeah, he was paralyzed, but just because he was physically paralyzed, it doesn't mean that his mind wasn't working. Yep, was just thinking of Hawking as well. Yep. Honorable mention. All right, guys. I have to bail now, but thanks so much for hearing me out and for your inputs. It certainly gave me like ideas on how I'm going to go about this the next time I get to work with this person. And definitely, it helps me with opening up about it, perhaps to management, and not feel so shy about it. Because I feel like once you discuss something and other people hear it and they give you feedback, it doesn't seem so bad anymore. So I will let you guys know how that goes whenever I get around to it, since we have this topic going on. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you soon.